So we have another haughty Raida servant coming out, and that is Murasaki Shikabu, and I know that everybody's going to be summoning for Murasaki, because even me, with my ironclad will, who was very determined to just summon for Kama, then summon for Scotty at the end of the year, dropped a multi on Murasaki and got shafted beyond belief. Even I was subject to summon for Murasaki, because like, let's face it, she's super hot, she's very cute. So the question is, less should you summon for Murasaki, but when you summon for Murasaki, and if you get her, is she going to be a servant you're actually going to run, and is she like pretty decent? Now looking at her hits, they're actually really solid, bro. Like 4 on the 2 quick, 4 on the 2 arts with a 0.45% NP charge attack, 4 on the buster and 5 on the extra. It's just very solid hits throughout. It's very similar to like how Gilgamesh has very balanced hits, where like Gilgamesh has 5 hits on everything and then like 7 on his extra. It's very similar with Murasaki, just to like a more lesser extent, but already off to like a very solid start. Although one thing to note is that despite being a caster, she doesn't have a traditional caster deck. Most casters have 3 arts cards, she only has 2. So do keep in mind there may be some times where you might have some trouble getting an arch chain, whereas like normally you wouldn't have trouble, especially like right now on NA, because you're probably going to use double Nero Bride and Murasaki if you want to do a lot of looping. And so in that case, you have 3 characters with like normal decks, you might struggle to get some arts cards. But if you're running her with like a Tamamo or like double Tammy, then you're definitely just going to be perfectly fine, because both of the Tamamos have like 6 arts cards together. But then we go to her first skill, which already is pretty solid already. Like it just reduces all enemies' defense by 30%, which means you're going to be doing a decent chunk of damage, and it increases everybody's damage against demonic enemies by 30% for 3 turns, all on a 6-turn cooldown. Which, do keep in mind, like I know a lot of people don't really look at these trait buffs too often. They're just like, it's like a special trait, it's only active some of the time. But when you get like a really good trait, like advantage, like something like demonic, divine, male, Brynhildr beloved, or your Gilgamesh, and you just do damage to all servants basically. And when you get these buffs that are very common, and like a lot of servants and common enemies have them, you're actually set up to do a lot of like really solid damage. And she gives it to everybody, right? So Murasaki, as we'll kind of go through, functions as like a DPS / pseudo support as well. If you wanted to, you could run Murasaki as secondary DPS alongside a main DPS servant, especially in like a challenge quest where there's like one main boss and like numerous like side goons. You could use Murasaki for her AoE and then have like your main DPS target down the boss, and if they also have like a demonic trait, works very well as well. So her first skill is already off to a good start. Her second skill is very solid as well. It is an 80% chance to seal one enemy's NP, which kind of gets back into the whole pseudo support aspect, but then she gives herself 30% NP gauge and 30% NP damage on a 6-turn cooldown as well. So already Murasaki is triple buffing her damage. She is lowering defense, applying trait bonus, and then also giving herself a sizable NP damage buff. So she's going to be doing like a decent amount of damage, but then again, she's also kind of helping herself out. She doesn't have a traditional caster deck, but she has a 30% battery, and then her utility allows her to seal the enemy's NP as well. And it's not like you waste anything, right? Because like say you use it for the NP seal, well the NP damage lasts 3 turns, so you get something out of it. The only thing you could probably waste is maybe the battery. Like if you're at 100% gauge and you know you really need to seal the enemy's NP, maybe you might waste your gauge, you know, trying to seal their NP, but I mean that's gonna happen sometimes anyway with most skills, right? Then finally, this is basically like her main utility skill. Her third skill gives everybody 500 to 1000 DR, right? Which is like nice. You know, you pair that with like waiver skill and you take like 0 damage. It lasts for 3 attacks as well, so you should be able to get some decent mileage out of it. But then it gives everybody in the party debuff immunity for 1 time, and then it also increases the party's buff removal resistance by 100% for 1 time as well. So basically, any debuffs like charm, getting your attack lowered, getting stunned, something bad like that happening, you get 1 freebie for that. And then say you're fighting like the new Ushiwaka boss that was just on JP, or you're fighting Shiro Amakusa, people that yeet your buffs before, you know, they actually do damage. So there's just, you just have to take their NP every single time. With something like this, you literally cannot have your buffs yeeted off of you. They stick to you and they hold. And it's very good for challenge quests, or if she's acting as kind of like a pseudo DPS / support. Because the other 2 skills are good for like farming and kind kind of being supportive, like they work both ways, but this is like purely like very just solid support type skill, and I really appreciate it. Now, unfortunately, her passive skills are lacking a little bit. You only get like 7% arts performance and 6% debuff success rate. They're both wanted effects, like these are both good, they help her out, but they're not like exceptional because they are still at like a low level, but we'll still take them because they're, you know, basically free. Then there's her NP, which isn't buffed, by the way, like let's just consider that. It's AoE, it has 6 hits, and you know, it's arts, so 6 hits on an AoE arts NP means she can loop quite easily. It inflicts buff block to all enemies, right, which means if they try to like give themselves guts, they try to buff their attack or something, it fails, like they can't do anything. And then if they're demonic, it does even more damage on top of that as well. So Murasaki is quite the good AoE caster, especially like being arts. I think they had to make her this good because her competition is Nidocris. And I know that Nidocris doesn't necessarily loop, but she has like a 120% battery, can damn near insta-kill anything in the game. So they were like, let's make Murasaki capable of looping, and let's make her really good as like a side support type unit, because even her NP, right, like it can do extra damage, but buff blocking everybody is really powerful. Like the fact that like she does everything is like AoE, like it's like all the party members get it, all the enemies get debuff, you know, it's just insane. Because remember, all of your allies can take advantage of her lowering everybody's defense. Everybody gets the bonus demonic damage. The only thing that's even like a little selfish is her second skill, because like the second skill only charges her NP and only gives her NP damage, right? And that's the only bit that's just like a little bit selfish, but still she's very, 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 very solid. You know, if you don't have someone like Neurocaster, or for whatever reason you don't have Nidocris, I'm sure there are people out there that have not pulled her, then this is like definitely a servant that you should be gunning for. She's so, so, so good. And I know this is kind of a stacked year, and like we have King Protea coming up, we have Kama coming up, but if you really don't care about like King Protea at all, I'm not going to assume that you don't care about Kama. I know most people are going to flip out when Kama comes out. But if you're going to be skipping like the CCC rerun and all that stuff, like you don't care about any of that, then this is definitely like a solid banner to maybe throw a multi or two at. Because Murasaki is definitely worth it if you do pull her. But with that being said, let me know if you guys were able to pull Murasaki. Again, I got shafted beyond belief, but I'd love to see how many of you guys were successful in getting her. Or let me know if you think that Murasaki is absolute poo-poo stinky and you don't even care about her at all. So I'd love to hear both sides, right? Although I think it's going to be pretty positive in the comments, right? But with all that being said, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed and want to see more fake content. It always kind of inspires me to keep going. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace, late guys.